Hi, uh, my name is Kaylin. Today I'll be talking about so that they shall not say this is Jezebel. So the agenda for today is discussing who is Jezebel in terms of in the Hebrew Bible. Then I'll be moving on to the poem, so they shall not say this is Jezebel. And throughout looking at this poem, I'll be discussing the relationship between the biblical text and this poem, and then I'll have some closing remarks. So who exactly is Jezebel? Growing up, I was taught that Jezebel is the embodiment of a wicked woman. She is cruel, she's greedy, and she's vain. So on the surface level, she's the wife of King Ibram. He appears in 1 Kings and 2 Kings. She tells her husband to worship Baal rather than Ea, which does have conflict, and because Baal is the nature god rather than the one true Hebrew god. She has conflict with Elijah, which we'll be seeing in the biblical text on the next screens. One thing that is a sin of hers is she falsely accuses Naboth because they want his garden, which does result in his death by stoning. And ultimately her death is a fall from the window and she is devoured by dogs. So in 1 Kings 19, 1-2, it says, when Abram got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah. May the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you killed them. Here she is displaying signs of vengeance along with having a voice, which comparatively to other women in the Bible is honestly very different. Most wives don't have a say in matters or even voice their opinions, but here she is being proud and saying how she feels about it, even if it is a response of vengeance. In 2 Kings 9, 30-35, when Jezebel the queen mother heard that Jewel had come to Jezreel, she painted her eyelids and fixed her hair and sat at the window. When Jewel entered the gate at the palace, she shouted at him, have you come in peace, you murderer? You're just like Zimri, who murdered his master. Someone go and bury this cursed woman, for she is the daughter of the king. But when they went to bury her, they found only his skull, her feet, and her hands. So this is depicting her death. And ultimately she was pushed out the window and fell. I cut out portions of it, but yeah, sad death. This is now moving us more so to the poem, since this is the reference that is made. So that they shall not say this is Jezebel. It was written by Aki Barnstone in 2016. So you'll kind of see the hints of 2016 in it in terms of political references, which I thought was interesting. It is a free verse poem that is very much a different take on the traditional Hebrew Bible of Jezebel. And the specific verse that is very important is Jezebel's body will be dung on the ground in the plot at Jezreel, so that no one will be able to say this is Jezebel, which is in 2 Kings 9:37. And I linked the poem. So talking through, the one who tells the story has power to erase the story, a nation of faith. So that they shall not say this is Jezebel. That is a reference to the biblical verse. Phoenician princess who became queen of Israel, which is true. She did become queen of Israel. So that a woman shall not speak, a woman shall not have the power to tell a story. I think throughout this poem, this is the first hint of it, but there is a large overriding theme of the story is told by males rather than females, which is maybe that's why she was painted in the way that she was. So I did find it strange that a woman shall not speak, even though Jezebel does have speaking roles throughout the Bible. I mean, she is the one that did tell her husband to convert and worship the nature god rather than Yari. And it is very much a running theme that he is very obedient to her. He is subservient, which is very different than the typical roles. In verse 2, it is Emily Dickinson wrote the Bible is an antique volume written by fated men. Still at the artful sneer, such men make a queen faithful to her own, a harlot, a flesh pot, a despot. I think definitely in more modern interpretations, And what you hear on TV and the references is Jezebel is she's a harlot. She's awful. I definitely did find it strange growing up, especially now that I am reading the Bible on my own, that Jezebel was seen as like a symbol of like sex and like that sin. Rather, there is no just direct reference, especially in the battle between Elijah, of her displaying sexuality. But she was a despot in terms of how she was portrayed. She was portrayed as a cruel ruler that sent away all the priests and locked them in a cave. And then verse 3 is he looms behind her as he speaks, taunts her for daring to lead. This is definitely another take. There is no direct reference to someone taunting Jezebel in the biblical text for speaking up. I guess you could take the fact that she was killed by men and there was vengeance in that way, that they were fearful of her leading, but there is no direct taunting displayed. In verse 4, the king agreed, rants, she's pussy, brags he grabs pussy, rapes a child, lies every 196 seconds, fact check your second. It's definitely a reference to more so 2016 in terms of when Trump was first running for president and then subsequently won, in terms of grabbing the pussy, potential child rape due to his ties with certain people, and the whole fact checking debacle. So this is more so not so much like about the biblical text. 5, the teachings say she was a dominating woman with a force of intellect and will, and none of the nobler feminine qualities of selflessness. Yeah, this is definitely more so very much judgment. First, yes, it is portrayed that she is a dominating wife, which is seen as bad in most circumstances, especially in societal norms, that a wife should not be the leader of it. Rather, she should be selfless and just listen to her husband. So it is kind of more so a better interpretation of the biblical text than most of the other poem, but still it is kind of an overreach that she wasn't praised for other things. Rather, there are certain traits that she exhibited that were bad, which is very clear in other stories. In 6, faded men with faded skin evolved from migrating north, away from sunlight and warmth, away from the mother god. Brown skin Isis, whose names they disgrace, make a terror curse. Isis, friend of slaves and artisans, icon of the icon of mother and child. After her son was murdered, knowing she too would be killed, Queen Jezebel dressed, arranged her hair, and lined her eyes with coal. Prepared herself for the grave where she would never be lain. Her last question, does he have peace who slays his lord? I did find this section kind of interesting. It does display her more so as a mother in terms of asking caring more so how her son is rather than her impending death, if he is at peace. I also find it strange that she makes references to the Lord, which she does not believe in. I think this is also not so much, I think the reference to the Lord is veering away from the actual biblical text, since she does not personally believe in it. In verse 8, it's more so now going through the actual story of her death. His answer, throw her down, pushed out the high window, adorned in gold, embroidered and tasseled Hyacinth gown. Her blood splashed on her palace wall and on her assassin's horses. He trod her underfoot till he was king, and he left his queen's corpse to be eaten by dogs, except the skull, feet, and palms. This is very much the story as it's displayed is in the Bible text. He did push her out the window, the horses did step on her, and she was left there to be eaten by dogs until he did make a reference that she is a king's daughter, so that she'd be buried, but then they saw that she was only a skull, feet, and palms. In verse 9, as it ends, and her carcass shall be dung on the field, so they shall not say, this is Jezebel, right, the faded men who deem their story the word of the Lord. This is very much the culminating judgment of it in terms of these men are saying this is the word of the Lord, so you should trust this story. So in terms of overarching it, it's very much a commentary about how the Bible should not be trusted. It's written by men. It's not giving an accurate portrayal of the feminine experience, and perhaps it's painting females as bad when they display characteristics that males would be elevated for, like leadership and such things like that. It does retell the overall Bible story in terms of like the tracebacks, but it's really not the same. And if the overall question it's asking is, was Jezebel cruel, or was she written by a man who was afraid that she used her voice? And it's a question I have not reckoned with yet. I am a follower of Jesus. There are certain things that I think the Bible part is wrong and have been changed with the history. And maybe Jezebel was one of them. I think she was cruel to her subjects, but maybe some of it was just written because she was an easy person to pin it on. Thank you. And this is officially my last assignment. Once I turn this in, I'll have no more assignments on Canvas. And it's kind of weird. I'm going to hit the stop record, turn it in, and I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. I'm graduating. I did college. I'm proud of myself. So thank you.